Adobe Experience Manager Core Components is the subject of today's guided journey. Core Components were introduced in AM 6.3 to provide robust and extensible base components, built into the latest technology and best practices, and adhering to accessibility guidelines. Core Components make authoring more flexible and customizable, and extending them to offer custom functionality simple for the developer. Using Core Components reflect best practices in AM. So if you're using an older version of AM and used to using Foundation Components and upgrade to 6.3 or 6.4, we recommend that you switch to Core Components. Core Components are built using HTL. They are open source and available on GitHub. Later in this video, we're going to examine how to work with the GitHub and Core Components and to fork the repository and then upload the Core Components into AM. Core Components require Java 1.8 and TouchUI. They do not work with Classic UI. Finally, you have to manually install Core Components onto the published instance, which will be shown later in this video. So let's take a look at some of the features of Core Components. So Core Components, they offer flexible configuration options. They offer best implementation. So Core Components are built on HTL, which is also known as HTML template language. They are also built using Sling models. Core Components offer modern markup, so they use Bootstrap naming conventions built around accessibility guidelines, and they are responsive. That means if you're built a Core Component into AM and running it on a desktop, or for example it renders on an iPhone, they're going to be responsive to the device on which they're rendered. Component versioning. Compatibility with a version. There's multiple versions to coexist on the same environment. We'll look at this later. Continuous delivery. Frequent and incremental functionality improvements. They're open source on GitHub for feedback, and you can contribute towards them. Component upgrades can be done independently from AM upgrades. And finally, global output. The capability serializes JSON, the content model for headless CMS use cases. So Core Components contain the following components: breadcrumb, form button, form container, content fragment, form hidden, form options, form text, image, language navigation, list navigation, page, quick search, social media sharing, text, and title. Looking at the AM JCR, we can see that Core Components are located under Apps Core. So we look under WCM components, we can see the specified components. So we see breadcrumb, comments, form, image, language navigation, list navigation, page, and so forth. So another thing to note about Core Components is when you build an AM archetype project, so for example 12 or 13, as here we can see REST HTL 6.4, we notice that under components content we have the various core components already part of our project. So we open up, for example, text. We can look at this and then we can see that the super resource type is core WCM components text. V2 stands for the version 2, and then text. So this is really how core components are built into your project. You're working with components within your project that the super type of those components reflect back onto the core components as seen with this resource type.